Welcome to the Founder Podcast. I'm Magnus Olson and I'm joined today by my co-host Justin Hodges and Big Benny Marr.
G'day.
G'day, mate.
All right, now we have got an epic episode this afternoon. I'd like to welcome Katie Stevens, serial entrepreneur, multiple business owner, online educator and ex-professional athlete. Welcome to the podcast.
I like a mouthful. Thank you so much for having me, boys. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Now, can you just explain for our listeners, you were a professional bikini model athlete. What's the difference between a bikini model and a pro bikini model athlete?
Yeah, good question. My version, my take on it is obviously, to an extent, it's both a sport, really. I mean, being a bikini model can be a career. But being a professional athlete where I was in the bikini model division was essentially body sculpting. So it was everything right down from the training, hiring coaches, the whole mindset around it, very meticulous dieting. And then I travelled right up through to world stage, competed for about 5 years maybe. So I guess the main difference is really macro tracking, dieting, training. I guess at the end of the day, when you step on stage, you are being judged, and a lot of that judging criteria comes down to the anatomy and the muscle compared to your body shape, compared to mainstream models or your Victoria's Secret long legs. I don't really have the legs for that, so I probably would never make it in the bikini model world. But more competitive.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, how many businesses have you started and which one's been the most successful?
There's been a lot that haven't been successful. Great learnings. To be honest, I actually haven't sat down and counted them all, unless we start from the beginning where it's picking flowers when I was 5 years old. I mean, that was a business, selling them to the neighbours. I've had multiple businesses. I think what's really cool is that it sounds like a crazy things going on everywhere, so many businesses in so many different industries. But the truth is that all the businesses that I've had, built, scaled and sold actually serve the same sort of niche market, same, people in that bracket of females wanting to empower themselves with the mind in her business, networking events right through to the bricks and mortar sprayed studios, which were 24/7 automated beauty studios, visual beauty, cosmetic tattooing business. So that's obviously about empowering women to feel more confident in their skin. I can't give you a number. I'm going to say we're still probably in single digits, maybe like the ballpark 8. Can I say 8?
Yeah. What about the online education space? How does that work?
Online education, that funny story actually. My background, Ben, relatable. I started studying to be a teacher. When I was growing up, mum and dad were like, right, what do you want to be, a doctor, a teacher? And I feel like you sort of had to get the paper, go to uni, get the degree. And I was that kid that made all my friends sit down in front of me and I was the teacher and they were the students. So I thought it kind of just made sense that I'd study to become a teacher. And fast forward, that was something that I've always been passionate about. Always been passionate to learn, always been passionate to teach. And I guess the crossroads where I sort of more slipped into the online education was right in the pandemic, where I was running all those live events and then got put to a stop really quickly, where a lot of industries or a lot of businesses that did live events, they switched to the online platforms of doing those events. And I felt like I'm such a, call me a bit of an extrovert, but I'm such a people person where I want to see people face to face. And I sort of felt a little bit controversial internally where I'm like, do I make it online? Do I not make it online? But then I had this one significant moment that happened at the end of every single one of my events where people would have that spring in their step. They'd be excited, they'd be motivated, they'd be inspired. They'd leave these events listening to these guest speakers talk about how they've built their businesses, and they wouldn't know what that next step was. They wouldn't know where to go and do the course, go and learn the things, how to start a business, how to grow a business. So the online education, I sort of built out my first course called Building Her Brand. And I launched that back in 2020. And since then, I've just really loved diving deep into all the automation. I've actually got a bit nerdy these last few years into all the AI integration and stuff like that. So yeah, I got lots of different courses and offerings and I just love it because it still brings out that community side.
Yeah, fantastic.
What about as being a professional athlete, what has helped shaped you in terms of your approach to business and what advantages can you take from that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, Justin, if anyone, you can relate with this when it comes to mindset and everything, when it comes to being a professional athlete or even just going through the momentum of training hard and having that grit and that resilience and having to push through, it's very similar to business. At the end of the day, I mean, you want to get bigger muscles, you work your biceps, you train that body part, and it's the same with the mind. It's a muscle. So it's one thing that I can't say I've actually mastered. I'm always working on it, but that's one thing that I've always sort of found the similarities is that at the end of the day, if you've got a goal, you've got to nut out what those steps are to get there. And it's the same thing with, football, basketball, any sport. I played state basketball growing up, and it was always just, you're working as a team, so you've got that contribution side, but when you work together simultaneously, the end result's to freaking win, right? Or make money, or whatever industry,
Both,
whatever area.
both.
All of the above.
A and B.
Yeah.
Have you invested personally in business coaches? Because obviously in a sporting background, we all know the importance of having a coach. Do you do the same thing in business and mentors?
Yeah, good question. 1,000%. I think to be a leader, whether you have staff or not as a business owner, is one thing, and you've got to learn those, those fundamentals per se to be able to, push down the line through your employees to create good culture, good community, positive aspects to create that ripple effect. But someone also has got to lead you, or you've got to be learning from somewhere. So I'm a massive advocate. I can say I definitely went through my personal junkie era, where I was going to every single, seminar and workshop and everything to learn all the things. And then in my late 20s, I started seriously investing in getting a mentor that was specific to where I wanted to go or where I wanted to grow in business. I couldn't speak more highly of it. It's the same thing with having a coach. Like, if you want to get better at something, work with someone that's either done the work and better than you, or that's got the experience that's going to help you anyway. Yeah.
In terms of social media, what advice would you give to people listening to the podcast around how to use social media as a tool to enhance what you're doing day to day?
Yeah, right. So, funny story. I've actually never paid a cent into paid advertising. I've never put a cent into paid advertising for any of my businesses. They've all been organic through social media. I think when I first started social media, and a lot of my following did come back when I was just organically talking about the protein I drank and the weights I was lifting and all the things when you're just going through that stage of, just going through the momentum of competing or whatever. But fast forward, I think what people adapted to or were drawn towards was actually learning about your story and not just seeing the results of, yay, this chick standing on stage with, a trophy or whatever. It was actually, oh yeah, I've seen her travel and she was in New York doing this at that gym and all the things in between. So social media is a huge part of, it's a massive part of all my businesses for growth. But I feel like we're in an era now that personal branding has never been so important. Yep. I mean, for me personally, I look at huge brands and I don't even follow the big brands on social media. I follow the founders or I follow the people behind it because I want to know the psychology or their mindset around how they carved and built that out, which is probably not every consumer, but I certainly feel that we're in an era now that people are not wanting to buy cold, salesy shit off Instagram and Facebook. Back in the day, 10 years ago, you'd have to see a Facebook ad 5-6 times. You'd be like, oh yeah, seems legit. I'll buy that, click, purchase. Now you have to see the same product advertised to you. I think it's 30 something times before you even have the indoctrination to be like, yeah, I have seen that before. So you pair that with a familiar face, or if you want to call it an influencer, micro influencer, or a founder, is you've really got to be selling a story. Yep. Or a service that's actually solving someone's problem. Yeah. But social media, it's not going anywhere, is it? So I feel like you learn a lot from there. It's a bit of a trap, bit of a vortex. Yeah. In and out when you can.
Do you think that nowadays social media, if you are to start a new business and you're a new entrepreneur, is it a necessity, or do you think you can actually build and grow a business without social media today?
If you come see me for any mentoring coaching, I'm going to tell you absolutely. But then again, on the other hand, the contrary to that, my husband's clients, probably 95% of them are not on social media. No. They're in the trades or big commercial industries where they don't even know what Instagram is. Yeah. So do you need it? Look, industry dependent. But if you're anything where especially if it's e-com, yes, you absolutely need social media to support what you're selling online. Because, you can only do so many billboards in that local area, and to be able to tap into anything online is through Meta, your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikToks, your Snapchats, whatever. But it's definitely paramount for majority of online businesses. Yeah.
I'm really curious, out of those 8 different businesses that you started, can you share a story behind one of them, on the inspiration behind it and how you went about starting it and to build it into a successful brand and a business?
Yeah, sure. I think let's talk about my my most recent one, I suppose, that I've just exited Sprayed, that idea come selfishly because I wanted it and I felt like it didn't really exist in the nature of how I wanted to utilize it. But we were back in 2020, and I'm seeing all these lockdowns and people can still go to the gym. They can just get these fobs and they're 24/7 opened on and off between the lockdowns. And I'm sitting there thinking, if people can go and train, why can't us women and men go and book a spray tan, go get a zero gravity massage, go and just zone out and do some meditation or light therapy? So I thought, well, if there's a system for that, there has to be a system for this. It can't be too hard. So the ideation behind that actually come from looking at how gym systems operate, really, and then thinking in my head, it'll be so easy. Turns out it wasn't, to integrate that many different systems to make things work. But that's where I guess the idea come from. And selfishly, it was something that I wanted because I was like, you know what, a spray tan's 15 minutes. Or 10 minutes max, really. These machines that I had at Spray, they're 4.5 minutes. You've got a spray tan, you're out, you're done. So looking at something like that, it's like for a female or a woman or a mum to have to schedule out and book an appointment at this specific 15-minute time slot to drive 20 minutes down the road to sit there and wait. I was like, people just want things now or yesterday. So it was about bringing convenience to the services to be able to go, you know what, I'm out the front now, I'll book an appointment, walk in, open 24/7. It was it's a staffless business model, so there's no staff at the front. But yeah, that's sort of, I guess that's how that come to fruition. Was that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that where you go, Ben? Is that where you were today?
Daily, mate, daily.
Just on that, you mentioned the whole, obviously turning up and all of the different systems that you had to connect together. Just share a little bit more on that, because I know there's some of the complexities that went into that and some of the issues that you confronted and how you solved those problems.
Yeah, I think it's probably like anything in life. I think when you think it's easier, if you're stupid enough to think business is easy, it never is. But where there's a will, there's a way. I think I just leaned in on people that had different but similar in a sense systems and setups that I would just continuously ask questions. I actually hired a coach that was specific to even franchise modelling when I was going through that at that time and exploring different opportunities. But as far as the systems go, you'd speak to one company and they were specialists in, for example, Bluetooth configuration, which is what you tap here. Because we didn't have key tags. We actually had an app on our phone that I created, a Sprayed app. So you literally can do it all in the palm of your hands, walk up, tap your phone, door opens. So then I'd sort of go, okay, well that works. And then the next part of the system is working out how people are going to select their tan. But what happens if a customer walks in and they just take advantage of the system, bring 5 friends and they all get a free tan? Okay, that's another problem. How do I solve that? So it was just along the way. I'd be lying if I said I had it all nutted out. It was definitely a vision that I had for a long time. But to actually just work through the processes, it would just be the matter of me going to one supplier, hey, this is what I need help with, massive Googles, a little bit of ChatGPT, and then just ask around to people I knew and then just, I guess, trial systems and just find what works.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think that, people starting out a new business, you've got to be aware that it's not going to be an easy road, and problem solving is a big part of being able to pivot just like you did.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like I still do it every day, most days. I mean, there's always something that pops up, but yeah, for sure. I think... I don't know. Complacency is something that's never going to work if you're going to be a business owner, and you've got to be consistent. But at the end of the day, you've always got to be ahead of the game. I don't really look at competitors as competitors, or I don't look sideways to see what else is going on. I'm like, this is where I want to go. How do we get there? Which probably isn't always the shortest way. Yep. Sometimes the road splits 10 different ways on the way to get to the final result. But I think it's just I don't know. If you want something bad enough, you just work it out.
Yep. Just on that, I heard a really good saying, and it was 10 words, and they're just 2 letters for each word. If it is to be, it's up to me.
Yes.
So
where'd you read that on the bumper sticker?
A wise man told me that.
Wise man.
Wise man.
Wasn't the bloke beside you?
Think of who actually wrote that. The first VIP, those little rubber bands that you get when you go to those events, and they give you these coloured bands in your VIP section, you go to the front. With the Minding Her Business, the very first bright pink bands that we got had that quote around the band of it.
You might have been there, mate.
I was there.
It was a Minding Her Business event that you snuck into.
Right, my next question, Katie. So obviously you're a very busy lady. managing multiple businesses. How do you still keep yourself grounded in that way, and also looking after your obviously your well-being as well, and your mental health?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to lie, I always have something going on. We're all busy these days. I think the biggest thing is actually carving time out for it. It's like if you're going to make an appointment, for me anyway, if you're going to make an appointment for a client or to see someone, then the most important person that you should make an appointment with is yourself, to check in with your mental health and your wellness and, time for gym or whatever that may be. So I'd say essentially I just time block it. I book it in and just literally clear out the calendar, and it's just a non-negotiable, because if you're not yourself or you're not feeling yourself, then how can you serve or be there to help other people? That would probably be the biggest one. There's times, and definitely it's taken a toll, where I've been like, I don't have time for the gym, or you know what, I don't have time to sit here and meal prep or whatever. Like we all grow up and down and things like that, but times like that. But I think at the end of the day, it does actually, without us knowing at that time, it's like habit stacking, right? And if you're doing the reverse of that, you're stacking this new habit where you're not making time for you. Yep. And I always say, like, your business is your brand and your brand is you, and it starts at you. So essentially, if you don't look after yourself first, then it's just going to, be a costly expense when health sort of takes its toll on you, really.
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah.
That's something else that I heard recently, hi Joe, that you might like, mate, and that is that if people say that they don't have time for their health, I don't have time to go to the gym. It's like, well, have you got time to get sick? And at the end of the day, it's going to catch up with you. It's compounding. So that's great advice. That even though you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business, what do you reckon, Ajay?
I don't know. I've got no time to go to the gym at the moment. I'm just busy.
Being busy.
Busy.
So we talked about mental health there. We talked about, being present. How about staying focused, like with all the businesses that you've, either built, sold, whatever it is? How do you sort of stay focused on that, that line or that trajectory you talked about?
Squirrel. No, I'm just kidding. I struggle to stay focused at the best of times. Not going to lie, but I literally have to do D&D, like do not disturb on my phone, and I time chunk, might sound not very long, 45-minute blocks of like core focus. Like can't deal with anything else. Otherwise, I feel like I've just got all these balls in the air. Some would call it spinning plates, but I don't do every business every single day. I don't work on every business every day. Otherwise, I'd just be an absolute head. But I will essentially either work on project-based businesses, or if it's like the continuous 24/7 and we've got like tech issues that need dealing with at that time on that minute, sure, things have to drop. But essentially, I mean, we're busy people with busy minds. You can't do everything, which I still struggle to understand. But I think, it's just time blocking. It's literally just actually mapping out the time and removing anything that's going to distract you. Even sometimes I need to remove pens because I'll be clicking and twisting and, finding something to distract me, or I'll just pick up the phone to call someone and accidentally slip, trip and land in my DMs to write back to people on Instagram. And then there goes 20 minutes. It's just so easy to do. But I think setting up the foundations, working in a clear space as well. Yep. I feel like I can't work in a clear space if I've got clutter and just shit everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well said.
Great advice, because I'm very much the same. You get very easily distracted.
Yeah.
So part of that might be a bit of an ADHD thing too that some of us suffer from. But
wouldn't be the first time I've heard that, Magnus. Self-diagnosed.
Yeah. I could talk before that you ran us through one of your businesses and how that was that came about. Let's talk about a failure. What do you think your biggest business failure has been, and what were some of the lessons that you learned from that experience that you could share with us?
Yeah, how long have you got?
We'll just focus on one.
I'd like to say I'm actually a bit of an optimist when it comes to run fast, break shit, or say yes, work the rest out later. So essentially fail forward. I think you can always do better, and if you don't hit your targets, your goals, your objectives, whatever, then look, maybe it's classified as failing. I've certainly made some huge financially impacting decisions, not for the best, that haven't been great. But if I was to, for example, I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head, but if I was to, run an organic marketing campaign or an EDM and put a boatload of time and staff and energy and all this sort of stuff into it and it didn't go as planned, it just flopped. Look, you know what, it sucks, but if you could just take the moment to actually just reset, like reflect on it, reset, and just readjust, and off you go again. I think it was, is it Mel Robbins? She has that book, the Rule of Five.
Yeah.
And it's like, if something doesn't go right in life and it's not going to affect you in 5 years' time, then don't spend more than 5 minutes like wasted, like festering on it. So, I mean, there's just so many things that I could just, look back and say, look, things could have been done better, preparation could have been better. But at the end of the day, like, you know what, if you're still above ground and you've got more opportunities to change things, then you just reset, refocus and move forward.
Move on.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, about leadership. Like, how important is leadership to you? What type of leader are you? And also, do you ask other people, like, what qualities you look for in other leaders as well?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I feel like it changes at different times of my life.
Yep.
I think with leadership, for me, I want to be inspired and motivated, but I'm also very intrinsically motivated. So I'm happy to do the work and get my hands dirty. When it comes to leadership, back in one of my first big companies, I had 1,500 staff, an Australian-wide promotional modelling agency, and I didn't have a mentor or a leader at that time. But I guess subconsciously, I was actually leaning in on all these essentially mid-40-year-old men, and I was like 19, 20, asking how they got to where they got to, what they were doing. And then I'm like, okay, cool, well, if I do that and I work through this, then I'll be able to learn, key things to help me move forward. But leadership's huge because I think as humans, we are quite complex, but we are yet still quite simple. So I think if we have someone that can actually lead the way for us and empower us to not only be motivated, be inspired, all the things, but to actually think for ourselves. So when it comes to looking for a leader, it would probably depend on what trajectory I'm on in what business.
Yep.
I've had leadership and mentors that focused on franchise models of businesses versus mindset coaches. I went through, I would say, a pretty low dark time back in about 21, and I just couldn't get myself out of a funk. I didn't have the motivation to be the hype girl on Instagram and socials and all that. And for me at that time, I come across I call her a spiritual coach because she's insanely intuitive with all different areas of happiness in your life, but she's not the one to just tell you to do the work. She just asks the questions and pulls it out of you. And I did like a 10-pack of mentor sessions with her, and then fast forward to now, I still see her all the time, and it's like, 4 years onward or whatever. So for me, that leader is that leadership I needed in my life at that point because days weren't always bright, sunshine and lollipops. And I think there's nothing wrong with actually slowing down to go fast. I think when it comes to leadership, you've got to really ask yourself where you are and where you want to go, because not every mentor is for everyone. Not every coach is for everyone. Not every leader is for everyone. But I mean, what's that saying of like, you are what your closest 5 friends are. It's also surrounding yourself by the right people in community. Yeah, and I think if even your friendship circles, I mean, regardless if you want to admit it or not, but there's going to be leaders in that circle. And if they're leading you astray, then you can relate. If they're leading you astray, then, you're a byproduct of that. So.
I love that. I haven't heard that within a leadership topic before, people leading you astray. But I love that you touched on the spiritual side of things. I have a spiritual coach too, and I think that's an area that's sometimes quite forgotten. So people have got the fitness side of it, they've got the mindset and the business coach side of it. But to me, that's actually the starting point, just getting aligned internally.
We've spoken about this even in the past over the years, about like just intuition, but also spirituality of like mindset. And it's so funny that all these business, whether it be podcasts or courses or whatever it is, there's so many different avenues of it, but everything actually is centered around who you are as a person and your mindset, really. I mean, I can't say I was in the mindset to build out all these online courses at that point in my life.
In terms of like the young entrepreneurs out there hearing this and they're thinking, I need to make a shift, I need to do something, what would be a piece of advice you'd give them on their mindset on how to shift to a space where they can really build momentum in what they're trying to do, whatever industry they're in?
Yeah. The first thing is write it down. Get it out of your head. Work out what you want, even if it's just ideas or you're scrolling on socials and you think, I want to be like her or whatever. Just actually write it down. I mean, the statistics on like succeeding in writing down your goals and stuff, you're like 30-something%, 33% higher chance of even achieving those goals by writing it down. Another thing is to actually just remember that you're never going to be everything to everyone. I used to have to be the biggest people pleaser and just make sure everyone was good. I didn't upset them, and if I kind of felt like they didn't like me, I'd like try harder. And now I'm like, that's okay. So I think for anyone that's up and coming, or that even in the transition of taking that, I guess, you know, change or shifting career from a full-time job to starting a business, I mean, fucking do it. Like, if you've got nothing to lose, seriously, like, and the embarrassment, no one actually really cares. That's probably something I learned when I used to care about what people thought. I'm like, this is going to be so embarrassing. And then to realise that you're like yesterday's news in a minute.
Fish and chips paper.
Yeah. Fish and chips paper, absolutely. Yeah, it's just don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry about what people think. And if people care, then you know what, they're probably not looking intimately inward enough. So
Well said.
I don't know. It's a tough one because we all have emotions connected to thoughts and feelings and all of that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, yeah, easier said than done. Just get out of your way. Write it down.
Good advice, though.
Yeah. I like what you said about people and having a crack at something and then potentially failing, because if you sit back and you ever go and talk to someone that's 80 or 90 years old, there's never ever a regret in the room for doing something. It's always a regret of not doing something. So, yeah, if you've got that burning thing that's actually, I again, starting from that spiritual side of things, that's something that you really feel compelled to do, just get out there, like you said, and have a crack. And maybe you'll make it, maybe you don't, but at least you won't die wandering.
Yeah, 100%. I think the conflicting thing, and I'm just going to speak on behalf of women for a sec, just because of like, I guess, the niche that I work in, is I feel that women in general can feel so easily misplaced in society, or that they're not doing enough. And then I'm not yet a mum, but I see my friends that go through the transition of being a mum, and then they've got work, and then they've got this, and they've got to weigh up all these things. And then you open up that, you know, shiny rainbows and lollipops Instagram app, and you're like, oh shit, I really need to be doing more. Is that in all that, I don't actually think there are no rules. Like, and when you see someone's highlight, you might forget about that person when they're not popping up for 6 months because they're having some lowlights. So I think, you know, we always naturally see the positives, or we're quick to judge on what we see of that I coulda, shoulda, woulda. But I think the biggest regret is like not taking a chance. But in the same sense, you know, there's actually never going to be the perfect time either. So just work out what's best for you. Probably sounds really ambiguous, but...
Yeah. What about routines, rituals, habits? How important are they for you? And do you have any daily, weekly, and routines and habits that you live by?
I'm a massive believer that you've got to set yourself up for success. You've got to have habits. I used to say, like, for me, the secret sauce is actually having routine the night before, because then you're good the next day. So if you're out having a few drinks, then chances are your morning routine's not going to be played out well. But when it comes to that, can I say that, like, I'm a bit of a hybrid. I don't have this wake up at David Goggins 4 a.m. every day and just like harden up and all the things. I'll have days where I'm like, you know what, I need to sweat. And I'll make sure that I get those 3 sweaty sessions in a week. Doesn't matter what day it is. And then I'll, you know, obviously I'm a huge fan of light therapy. Have you done light therapy?
No.
What's that?
Red light therapy, it stacks well with ice baths, Justin. And saunas.
I know other therapies, but
Yeah, red light therapy has like so many benefits to like boost your serotonin levels, which is like your happy hormone and stuff like that. Smooth your skin. You've got all the regenerative cells and things like that obviously help for the physical appearances. But studies actually have proven that it is so good for mental health. So I'll jump onto the light therapy at home at least 2 to 3 times a week, and that's just a massive switch for me of a morning. That's probably a non-negotiable every single week. So I'll do that mixed in with some exercise. I actually don't right now. I'm not in a place where I'm 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever every single day. But when it comes to having routine, it's like, you know, if you don't do it Monday, you can still start Tuesday. Yep. I don't just write off a week and veg out on the couch. Like Justin does. No, I'm kidding.
I do. Talk to me about you missed Monday, you missed the whole week. That's how I live.
5 minutes ago, you're like, I'm just so busy.
No, well,
now you're like,
you missed Monday,
Netflix.
the week's done. Then I start again the week after,
Yeah.
because I've got to start. That's just how my brain works. But anyway, it's not about me. How do you? I don't like to use the word failure, right? How do you handle setbacks?
Setbacks. I mean, it depends on how big the setback is. If you break your leg, you're not playing the next game of football. So you.
Or some of your
job,
biggest setbacks in business, something that's gone wrong, or
for me, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, look, it really depends on what state I'm in and how it is. If it's something that I'm like emotionally connected to, I'm not going to lie, I am super emotional in that sense. I'm a Pisces. So I'll cry. I mean, there's a statistic around like hormones with female versus male. Guys like just go for a run and sweat it out, and that helps like reduce cortisol. No, some of them watch Netflix. I don't know. But if it's the failure was that bad, I mean, you've just got to work through it. So probably even what Ben and I were saying earlier is that just taking the space to just breathe and understand what has gone wrong, what you can change and what you can't change, and then those steps to move forward.
Yep.
I think...
so first thing, mate, you need to have a good cry, and then you'll be fine.
Good cry, short run, bit of Netflix.
Why are you looking at me?
I'd say so. I don't know. Everyone's different. I feel like I could sit and have a chat to someone and they're like, you know what, if you got to do this and you just got to grit, and you're like, I'd only watch like 3 or 4 Dave Goggins videos. You're like, holy shit, I need to harden the fuck up. And then I'll like watch someone spiritual that's just like, sit in it, journal, you know, how do you feel? Get it out on paper. But what works for you is not going to be like everyone's answer. I go in ebbs and flows, but if it's massive and it's critical to the business, I need to actually sit down and not do that shit again. Write some things, points.
So on that note, in terms of a business decision you've made that was really gut-wrenching, even if it worked out positive or negative, regardless of how it worked out, maybe like, you know, for someone who's listening to this, whether they're an experienced entrepreneur or they're new and they just got a really hard decision to make, can you share with us one that you had to make and how it turned out?
Yeah, cool. Off the top of my head, I'll find something specific in a second, but the first thing I would actually do is write down the pros and cons. So if we're talking decision making, so not setbacks, we're talking about decision making, whether we're starting a new business, for example.
Correct.
I'm like, okay, cool. I want to start a business doing, I don't know, skincare.
Yep.
And okay, it's a saturated market. Pros of it, okay, there's a lot of people that use skincare. Cons of it, it is a saturated market. Who can I talk to that is 10 years more experience than me that potentially has walked the walk, and maybe it didn't work out. Maybe it did work out. Maybe they sold it, and have a chat to them. We've got Instagram and socials now that you can literally voice note people. Like, I feel like everyone in a sense is contactable or reachable, and if they're not, do some deep diving and chat to their PA, their EA, their videographer, whatever, and find a way to actually communicate with someone that has actually walked the walk. I think the funniest thing is growing up, I'm not going to say know-it-all, but I certainly felt like I was going through that era where I was like, don't tell me what to do. And I remember my parents always saying like, yes, Katie, but you don't have the experience. And I guess there's two sides to that, because growing up, I'm like, I don't need the experience. I'll just make the decisions and then deal with the repercussions. And then there's the other side that I'm like, hang on a second, if I can save myself a shitload of time and money and learn from someone that has experience, then to me, like, that's just hugely, like, that's unsurpassably, like, incredible if you can learn that. And we do live in a world that you can learn so many things so easy. You've got YouTube at your fingertips. You've got, you know, all these different platforms online. But yeah, when it comes to decision making, I think don't do it just because it's a good idea at the time. Because if you're not actually working to true north of who you are, you will burn out. If you don't have a strong enough passion to play the sport, to run the business, to whatever it may be, there's a shelf life for everything, I think.
Well said.
And I've certainly done businesses that at the time probably weren't my true north. They were just a passion project at the time. And then I just lost interest or I lost passion. It's really hard to get out of bed if you don't want to do something.
100%. Just as far as skill sets goes, sorry. What was that, mate?
I was just saying, yeah, couldn't agree more.
I thought you said that's not me no more.
That's what I thought.
I couldn't agree more.
So
like we've got conflict on the panel.
Let's just talk skill sets for a minute. So as a serial entrepreneur and all the different businesses that you've started, what are, say, the 3 core skill sets that you're going to need if you're going to set out and try and be an entrepreneur?
that word almost annoys me sometimes because I hear it thrown around all the time, especially from like young upcoming and in their own right successful YouTubers, like, and then you hear kids being like, what do you want to be when they grow up? They're not like wanting to be doctors and teachers. They're like, I want to be a YouTuber and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's wild.
It is a very loose word. Probably what's more specific, I think, is you've got to be a business owner.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think in general, like to own a business and to just work in the business or on the business and have people that you bring in, it doesn't mean that you're an entrepreneur.
No.
You know, you could just fundamentally be an employee for yourself, really, or buy yourself a job if you know, in some instances. But back to your question, you've got to have grit.
Yep.
Definitely got to have grit. You've got to have resilience, which probably goes hand in hand with that. And you've got to, I guess we're probably talking about leadership a lot. You've got to have leadership. You've got to want to not only create and be around a really good culture, but you've got to want to contribute and give back. To be an entrepreneur, I believe you have to want to make the world a better place. You have to be solving someone's problem to some degree to leave a greater impact than where it was or where the world was where you were before you entered that part of business.
Yep.
So how many words do we put this in? Grit, resilience, contribution, leadership.
Yeah, yeah. So that just comes back to what you're saying with that sporting background, because there's some of those skills that you obviously learnt, the grit, the determination in particular, and even leadership in a team sport that you can really transfer back into the business world.
Yeah, I'd agree massively. I think, to be honest, my finest moments were actually on the basketball court or in the gym, not necessarily on stage doing my thing. I loved all that side of it as well with the body sculpting, but it was actually the grit and everything I had to push through in mindset and work around injuries or certain areas of my life to get to that next goal. Yeah. It literally mirrors in business. It's very similar. I actually I did a podcast with Cohen Ray, who recently passed, but we were chatting about similar things about being a professional athlete versus being in the military and then the special SAS forces and the mindset and the grit and all that. I mean, that's a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. But when you start flowing that through down to business and things like that, I'm like, wow, like it's really just wiring of the brain in a sense.
100%.
Do you want me to say something? I think you've already touched on it, but obviously with goal setting, like I tell people all the time, like I think you just said it before about writing them down so you can see it, put it somewhere where you wake up every morning and it's there for you to see. Like how important is that, like to reinforce that message? Like sometimes I hear us old fellas say it and they're like, oh, blah, 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 but obviously yourself being younger and how successful you've been, how important is writing down goals and actually seeing it, visualising it and then putting it into practice?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've tried it with and without, and I can tell you that if you don't, well, especially if you have a busy mind like us in the room here, but if you don't write it like down, if it's out of sight, it's like almost out of mind, or it's hard to follow something if you're constantly putting your brain in overdrive to try and remember what you want to achieve, where you want to go, how you're going to do it. I mean, I'm no cook, but it'd be like baking a cake. I don't do any cooking in the house, but it would be like baking a cake. If you don't follow a recipe, chances are you'd end up with like maybe a bit of a disaster or a few setbacks. But I think, I don't know, actually I'm curious. Do you write down like your goals and things like that? Is that like a male-female thing? Or?
Yeah.
And measuring for me is probably the biggest thing, that continuous reflection, seeing exactly where you are and just adjust. And the reflection component and the adjustment component, because things are always moving and they're never moving in a straight line. So even though you're moving in some direction forward, some of the time, by the time I get to or partway through to where I want to get to, I actually realise that, hang on a second, that's not the exact path I want to take. So then you're doing a little deviation. So if it's not for that pausing and that reflecting and then adjustment for me.
Yeah. I like writing, but I'm certainly like a visual learner. I love to see like pictures and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm not someone that does like a vision board every 3 months or whatever.
Yep.
But I certainly like to go, okay, well, I want to tick things off my list. But if my list is too long, I'm not going to read it every day.
Yeah.
I just will just skim. So I feel like I'll write down the goals and then I'll write like an objective. Actually, I'm just building out a new business at the moment and the business plan structure is about 33 pages. Yep. I don't know how many times I'm going to read those 33 pages, but I will run through and then just get the objectives out of it and just shorten it.
Summarise it. Yep.
Yeah, and summarise it. Or what's the, I mean, it's not old school, but the theory of SMART. you know, the
Yep.
SMART.
Yep.
I think that's also going to hold you very accountable to any goal setting and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just such an underrated thing. If you want to achieve anything in life, like write it down. I mean, I hear all the time, especially in my world, the manifestation, the words of affirmation. And I think it's quite ambiguous to think that you want to drive a $300,000 car. It's going to happen if you think about it enough. But I certainly believe in the subconscious and bringing that forward to the consciousness of the mind, and the mind actually not understanding what's real in reality and what could be. So in synchronicity, I think, writing it down, getting the visualizations around it. Yeah.
100%.
In terms of any like high pressure business decisions out there, like, or anything that people might be struggling with based on what we've already talked about on the podcast, what would be some advice you'd give someone to help them work through that decision? Like you said before, write it down, but other than that?
Yeah, outside of getting like leaders or people that are experienced, there's so many probably psychological methods to the madness of actually making a decision. But if it's something like, here's an example. I was going through a sale of one of my companies, and I had so many different paths and opportunities or avenues I could have chosen to exit or to, I mean, everyone's got to have an exit goal, like end game for any business that they start, right? But I was sitting there like, do I do a joint venture? Do I raise capital? Do I take private equity? Do I franchise? And you've got all these balls in the air. And to be honest, that decision making, it wasn't like there was any decision was going to be wrong. It was like, what's actually best for right now and for me. So that was really hard. But outside of writing it down and speaking to people that were experienced, there's this part of me, and we've all got it, like this intuition that it's got to sit right and feel right to actually keep living that journey or that path. And there was an instance where I was offered multiple like millions of dollars, and the easy choice would have been like, yeah, I'll take it. And then I was like, well, I've also got to put my head on the pillow at night and feel okay with this workload and all the things that are going to come with that, the pressure, the output, the energy, the saying no to things that I actually do want to do, the travel with, you know, my husband, I'm like, kids are going to have to wait. This is going to have to wait. This is me for the next 4 or 5 years. So I guess essentially that probably helped with the decision making, going, hang on a sec, remove what the decisions are and go back to where you are. Let's look at the 7 key areas of happiness, or all these different areas of our life, family, friendships, whatever it is that we want to do. Yep. Would they take some weight, or would they be, I guess, what am I looking for? The word of like not being able to achieve or have those things. Yep. That's, you know, and saying yes to this now can be detrimental to your relationship or to your, you know, whatever else outside of that. So maybe that's a bit of a reverse. I'm just having an epiphany here. That's maybe like a bit of a reverse engineer to making a decision, is not worrying about what the decision is, but worrying about how it may affect other areas that continuously make and keep you happy.
Sure.
Yeah,
Very,
thinking about those.
Well answered. Thank you so much. That was good.
Yeah. Reflecting back, is there anything that you do any differently?
You know, I like to move really quick, Magnus, but I would say start sooner.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been like times, especially in like really competitive industries, where I'm like, there was this one product I wanted to bring to market back in 2015, and they were under eye gold masks. And I was on world stage over in Vegas, and I saw these little flimsy patches that I got in some little gift bag when I signed up. And I was like, oh my gosh, these help with like dark circles under your eyes when you're depleted and you're running on like low body fat. And I was like, we can bring these to Australia. I could not find them anywhere. So I sat on this idea for a couple of years. I said it to a few friends because they had beauty companies. And I said, you should bring them here. Like, I'll help sell them. And fast forward, it took me about 2.5 years to launch that one product. And in that space, and I don't know what those business plans of those other industries and I guess you can call it competitors were, but there were businesses that literally hit the green button and moved really quickly, and they launched after me. But they had the power, they had the team, they added it into their, you know, collection of already existing products. And I sat back going, whoa, if I had have actually just ran with that, I'd be a couple of years ahead. And I think it's like anything, I don't know, I still have the mentality of say yes, work the rest out later. But I think the advice would be like, don't wait. And have voices and opinions and advice from people that can help you that are experienced. But don't take any advice from someone that either knows nothing or hasn't either walked your shoes or walked the direction that you're going.
That
Yeah.
is fantastic advice. Yeah. So many people, like you said, you're going and getting an opinion off someone that's got no clue. They've never done anything. They've never started a business. And why would you just take advice from them?
I find that the people that are really good at giving advice are not the ones that will give it until you ask. They will sit back and they'll listen. And I've got some really super, in my opinion, successful men and women.
Wise
and they
people.
sit back. And I'm just like that annoying monkey that's just asking all these questions. I'm like, and then what happened? And then what happened? I'm like, sorry, I've got this. And they're like, yeah, cool. Like, yeah, that sounds good. You're doing well. I'm like, well, what would you do if this? And you've really got to extract the information until you've got that relationship. Whereas, you know, in other areas of life, you've got friends or family members that might be the first to say, don't do that. Stupid.
Yeah. It's something, I've heard you mention this a few times now, and I think that we just haven't spelt out the word, and that's to be curious. I think that's a big trait of being successful as well, just to ask a lot of questions. And if we look back at our childhood, that's one of the reasons we go through that really steep learning curve as a child, is because they're asking all the questions. And I think sometimes as an adult, you're too afraid to ask a question. But I'm really hearing that coming from you, that just that importance of asking a lot of questions and being really curious.
I wonder what that age, like, is there a study around that where there's this age where maybe it's probably adolescence where you go through female, male, where you actually just do the whole embarrassment thing and you start to stop
It's
asking
becoming
questions?
self-conscious. But when I remember my son when he was 3 or 4 years old, from the back seat, it's just, Dad, why is that? Dad, why is that? Dad, why is that? Dad, why is that? You know what I mean? You wonder why they learn so much, because you have a look at how many questions they ask every day. And I think, you get into that point of perhaps into high school that you become very self-conscious. And I think that's when you stop being who you are as a true person, and you start to become somebody that is an expectation of what you should be rather than what you are.
Yeah, for sure. And probably where a lot of people start asking you questions opposed to asking them. But yeah, I'd say I'm probably the annoying one that asks way too many questions.
Yep. We're about to get into the quick fire. You got any closing comments?
I'm good.
No, mate, the floor's yours.
Mate,
That was awesome.
you ready?
I'm ready.
Here
What are we doing?
go.
The quick fire questions.
This is his favourite part.
Okay.
Be careful.
Your favourite way to start the day?
Movement. Wait, is this one word answers? I feel like I need a buzzer. I just thought.
Ben's going to race
one
you.
word, one sentence, max.
Okay.
One attribute an entrepreneur must have.
One.
Attribute.
Tenacity, community, culture, grit.
Best book you've read for personal growth.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
One of my favourite books. I've just finished reading
A lot
it for
of
the
pictures
third
in it?
time. No pictures,
No
mate.
picture. Oh, well, I'm
Morning
out.
or evening workout for you?
You can do the Audible on 2 times speed.
There you go.
Morning or evening workout?
Mid-morning?
Okay.
Is that okay? I mean, what's because your morning's probably, I feel like it's still dark. 4 a.m., 5 a.m. My morning, 8 a.m.
A single word that defines who you are.
I'm going to steal your word and say curious. Curious
Favourite-
Katie.
Favourite business or tech tool?
AI. Loosely ChatGPT is like, I wouldn't be able to go to the grocery store without it. ChatGPT, any automation, Zapier, CRMs, anything that makes my life simple. And if someone asks me 3 questions, the same questions, I will need to automate it. So,
A top
Systemization.
trait that you look for in an
sorry, that was too
employee?
long. Top trait in an employee, roboticness, AI, automation,
Yep.
autonomous. I just started a business, so I didn't have to have employees.
Yeah.
To be able to work autonomously and to be able to have a vision to see the work that needs being done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
self-led.
so true. What's your go-to self-care routine?
Definitely light therapy. I don't think this is a phase or an era. I've been a mad believer of it for about 5-6 years now. I feel like there's a lot of buzz around it at the moment. Light therapy, quick getaway. I can do a reset in 48 hours. I'm actually going away to the Ridges in Mullaney this
Yep.
weekend, so I'm super excited for that. Grass under my feet, sand in my toes. I'm happy girl.
Wine or cocktail?
French champagne.
Your most memorable your most
Champagne.
memorable moment as an athlete.
Oh, most memorable probably isn't the positive side of me being on stage winning, although that's distinctively set in my memories. It's going to be the tough times in the gym, the tears in the gym, the hunger.
Yep. If you could be known for one thing, what would that be?
Hungry to learn more, hungry to know more, and hungry to do more.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's 3 things, isn't it?
One piece that you'd give to a younger self.
One piece. Don't wait. Start now. And yeah, just get out of your own way.
Your favourite way to unwind?
Mood dependent. Vacays, flights. Catch flights, not feelings. No, I'm just kidding. Travel.
Yep.
Going somewhere new, exploring somewhere new, and learning from different cultures. Yeah, conversations with randoms.
Who is the best living entrepreneur?
Oh, best living entrepreneur alive right now. Questionable if he's human, Elon Musk. He's up there, maybe controversial this week given the circumstances. Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, they're all like incredible humans that are doing incredible things. But Australia-wise, I'm going to say Melanie Perkins, the founder of Canva.
Yep.
She's insane.
Yep.
She's doing some really cool things, not just in the tech side, but also to leave the world a better place.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
People that say they're going to do something and don't. Offended.
You're right.
That was too quick.
Oh.
What's the one non-negotiable activity you do every day?
Eat, sleep, gratefulness, gratitude, check in with myself. Can be morning, can be night, but I just have to say 3 things I'm grateful for, even if I'm in a really off mood.
Yep.
Just bring myself to the present. So let's say gratitude.
Perfect. Last question. What's your best productivity hack?
Productivity hack, I'm going to say automation. I teach courses on it. Automate the shit out of everything you can. Less brain power. Productivity hack is time block. Time block means to write it down, and actually you don't need to write your minute to the day each day, but actually time block the morning to the mid to the afternoon. If you're going to slack off and you're not feeling it one day, pick up the pieces and write down what you're going to do the next morning. So write it down and automate, systemate, and create.
Fantastic. What a great way to finish. Thanks so much for coming in, Katie. Really appreciate time. Now busy you are commuting up from the Gold Coast, and love your energy.
Thank you.
Perfect.
It's always fun. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Magnus. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you.